Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. Let's be honest here, it's no secret that really ever since the Cold War integration took place, modern warfare weapons here in Warzone have not been the favorites, at least when it comes to what's getting buffed, what's getting the most attention, right? It's very clear that Cold War weapons are primarily the ones that are the best in each category. However, thanks to the latest round of weapon tuning, the biggest tuning update that we've ever seen, a lot of Cold War weapons were nerfed because we were focusing on this whole TTK increase, and it just so happens that most of the Cold War weapons had very good TTKs, whereas a lot of the modern warfare weapons were just average, just mediocre. They didn't really need to get nerfed because their TTKs weren't part of the problem. And in turn, that means now a lot more modern warfare weapons are actually viable and are actually competitive. And today we are going ahead and we are looking at the best modern warfare weapons, the modern warfare meta weapons in every category that we have. So if you enjoy the video at any point, let me know by dropping a like on it. Would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you are new to the channel and you want to stay up to date with everything going on in COD, this is the place to be. So feel free to subscribe with your notifications turned on. So I've gone ahead, I've sorted like the weapon categories for modern warfare weapons only. And of course, first up, when it comes to the rifles, the first main meta weapon we have is the AMAX. And honestly, this is probably the best modern warfare weapon we currently have in the game. Maybe second to one that will come up here and discuss here in just a moment. But when it comes to the long range meta, the medium to long range meta, I would say the AMAX is very obviously the best modern warfare weapon. There are cases for other rifles, and we'll talk about a couple of them here in just a moment. But when it comes down to it, the AMAX was the #1 gun for quite some time. It still is very competitive despite receiving a few nerfs. And when it comes to the setup, it's really nothing too crazy here. We're going to go for the monolithic suppressor, as always. We're going to go for the Zodiac barrel. It's going to give us the best range and velocity, as well as helping out with the control some. We're going to go for the 3x optic, the VLK 3x. And of course, because we're using that, I have to go for the T-pose reticle. This thing is way too clean to not be using. We also go for the basic 45 round mags. Unfortunately, this is the largest option that we have. If this thing had a 60 round, it'd be even better, but 45 is what we got to work with. Then when it comes down to this last attachment here, you can go a few different routes. Most players are going to go ahead and use the commando foregrip for their 5th and final attachment. Lately, I've been really enjoying the tac laser instead. It's still going to help out with the stability and whatnot, so it's going to be relatively easy to actually stay on target at ranges. You're just not getting as much recoil control, but if you learn the pattern, you're pretty much good to go, and this is actually a bit of a faster setup, but you can sort of swap back and forth between those two. Now, the other Modern Warfare meta rifle really is going to be the Ram 7. While there are a few other good options, you know, the AS Val, we could talk about this. Honestly, it's got the really good TTK up close. It's not really super great for, you know, trios and quads and larger squad-based engagements, but we can go ahead. We can briefly go over this one. I'll have the pre-built set up here already. We go for the OSA barrel in most cases, better range, better velocity. As far as the grip goes, I have Ranger on here, but it's going to be kind of slow. Honestly, Commando would work well. So would Merc. Sort of comes down to preference there. 30 round mags is going to be pretty much a standard here because, like I said, the magazine capacity, not good for trios or quads. Rubberized grip tape is an option. It is going to slow you down a bit. You could always swap that out for like tac laser. That wouldn't be a bad option either. Then finally, we go for the Strelok stock, going to help out with the control and the stability as well. That's sort of more of a niche weapon, but I would say it is somewhat meta, at least in solos and duos. But anyways, focusing back on the Ram 7 here, this is really good for sniper support. Still, it is going to be a tad bit worse than before because this was actually nerfed with the whole mid-season update. But for sniper support, for some more aggressive engagements, the Ram is probably going to be one of the better Modern Warfare rifles. AMAX is obviously very good for medium and long range, where I would say the Ram is better for close and medium range. We're once again going for the monolithic suppressor. For the barrel, you could either go Eclipse or you could go Ranger. Just depends on how aggressive you want to be with this weapon. If you're ultra aggressive and using this as sniper support and for more close range fights, Eclipse is probably going to be the better choice. You don't get slowed down as much while using this. Ranger, though, is going to have better control, but also some lower movement speed and whatnot, so it's going to be slightly slower in general. So in that case, it is going to be used for more like medium range fights. You could also use this for long range, but I do prefer the AMAX, but either of these are going to be great. I also go for the tac laser once again, better speed, better stability. If we're going for no, you know, range on this thing, we're using this as sniper support up close. I'm going to forgo an optic. I'm going to go ahead, throw on the commando foregrip, and then also the 50 round mags. And bada bing, bada boom. We've got our setup here. If you're going for more range, take off the tac laser, add on the VLK 3x, and you're good to go there. But this is mainly my preferred sniper support setup. Now for SMGs, I'm going to be honest, we really only have two options. That is the MP5, and that is the MP7. Now the MP5 is going to be the main one. I honestly do think this is the best SMG in the game right now. Of course, for starters, we got to go for the monolithic integral suppressor. The best option for, you know, between a muzzle and a barrel on this sub is going to be the integral suppressor because it is slightly better than basic monolithic. We also go for the Merc foregrip. This is going to help out with the hip fire accuracy and basic control. Alongside that, adding on the 5mm laser is going to make this thing deadly from the hip. You don't always even have to ADS with this thing, and it's still going to be very, very good. 45 round mags is usually the go-to. You could try a 30, but that's just not enough ammo in most cases. Then finally, you can sort of mess around. You could go for the stipple grip tape. You could go for sleight of hand if you wanted to, or personally, I prefer the collapsible stock the most. And this is going to be your best support for using an LMG, a rifle, attack rifle, really anything like that. This is the most dependent and consistent SMG in the game right now, I would say. Now, at the same time, if you're looking for sniper support or more of a hybrid SMG, that is where you'd look towards the MP7. This is going to be really good for that. Great to pair with a CAR or a Swiss, or even just use as an SMG that you want to use in more close and some medium range fights as well, because it's going to be really good in that area too, and it really always has been. Again, we're starting off with the monolithic suppressor. We're going to go for the recon barrel because this is going to be the longest one here in this case, give us the most range and velocity, and as well as the best control. I like to go for tac laser yet again, basically because the control on this thing, the recoil is straight vertical. It's so easy, so you don't have to use a grip here. It's completely unnecessary. You go with these first three and you're going to be good. We also go for the 60 round mag. You could also go for 50, just comes down to preference there really. Then again, for the last one, you can sort of mess around. I really like the stipple grip tape on this setup. It gives it a really fast ADS and makes it more efficient for some of those close range fights. I know a lot of people like to go for no stock or the close quarter stock, or once again, sleight of hand is totally an option here as well. Now, for the shotguns, we got a handful of options, some that have been really good in the past, like the R90 and the Origin. But right now, I really think the JAK 12 is probably the go-to in most cases. Now that said, I don't even have the JAK all the way leveled up because I just don't like shotguns and I don't use them. But you would build this out in the same way that you would really any other shotgun. I do have a few of these attachments unlocked thanks to the blueprint, but we go for the Forged Tac Marauder muzzle, better for range and better for sound suppression as well. It's going to keep you off the minimap. You go for the Torrent barrel, better range, tighter pellet spread. That's going to be a pretty big bonus there. As far as the magazine attachments go, the 20 round drum or any of the drum mags are actually going to be pretty good because this is a very good shotgun for just spamming up close. It's going to be very efficient for that. Whereas if you use something like the slug mags, you're not going to be as accurate. It's going to be harder to stay on target. So for pure spammability, we could say any kind of drum mag is going to work great there. I would throw on the tac laser if I had it unlocked, but I'm only level 23 on this thing. Like I said, I'm not a shotgunner, not a fan. But you want to go for the 5mm laser just like you would on any other shotgun. And then for the last attachment, once again, just like the SMGs and whatnot, you sort of got free reign to mess around with. You could go for something that's going to give you a faster ADS speed like the Tsunami stock. You could go for these other stocks that I would assume would help with mobility in other ways. You could go for sleight of hand again if you wanted to, or you could go for a rear grip, get a better ADS speed, better sprint to fire speed. Honestly, stippled here would work pretty well, especially because you are hip firing so much. Sprint to fire speed is pretty useful. So this would probably be my recommended go-to. 5mm laser on here instead of the 1mm, obviously. Then the rest of this is as standard. But yeah, honestly, for shotguns, really the JAK 12 is the only one I'd recommend right now. The Gallo and the Street Sweeper are mainly the main ones used there, mainly the main words. Moving on to the LMGs here, we got a couple of options. The first one is going to be our very first LMG, the Bruin. This thing's TTK is one of the best in the game right now, especially over range. It's going to fry. Problem is that you do have to use the 60 round mags. We're going to start off with this one right away, and that does limit your damage per mag and your kills per mag quite a bit compared to some of the other LMGs, which have 80 rounds, 100 rounds, 120 rounds per mag. So 60 round though is going to be ideal for this. You're basically trying to build a rifle LMG hybrid essentially. For the barrel, you can go a few different ways. I'd recommend Horizon or Summit. Horizon's not going to give you as much control, and for my build specifically, I do go for Summit despite it being a bit slower because I do opt out of using an underbarrel. I like to use the tac laser because you gain some of that ADS speed back. Then finally, for the fifth and final attachment, you can go a few different routes. VOK 3 times is probably going to be the most used, but also using a blue dot hollow sight's not a bad option either. We'll stick with the 3 times now though for the most generally used setup, and this right here is going to be very solid. If you do want more control though, drop the tac laser, add on the commando foregrip. That'll help out there some. Now the other meta LMG I would say is the PKM, and this thing has been a beast pretty much since launch. It's got a few nerfs. It actually got buffed and nerfed with the last weapon tuning update. I believe its range is slightly worse, but its damage is slightly better. So it's still going to fry. It's still going to be a powerhouse. We're going for the monolithic suppressor again and the heavy barrel. Pretty standard. Like, as I'm sure you guys can tell on all the Modern Warfare weapons, and we've been over this countless times throughout the last like 14, 15 months. Mono suppressor, biggest barrel is usually the go-to in this case. The PKM though does have the snatch grip, which is great, better control and better ADS speed, which is not something you usually see on weapons like this. We also go for the 3x optic on this as well. And again, for the last attachment, you got a lot of options. You could go for attack laser, get some better speed and stability. You could go for a larger magazine if you wanted to, but I probably wouldn't recommend that. Instead, I'd be going for either a close quarters stock for a bit more aggression, the stipple grip tape for better mobility, or sleight of hand because you do have a pretty ugly reload with that 100 round mag on there. Now over to the marksman rifles. This one's super easy. The best option is by far the car. I know quite a few people out there do enjoy using the SPR, but statistically the car is the way to go, especially for aggressive sniping. I'm sure we all know this setup by now. Monolithic suppressor and of course the 27.6-inch barrel. We also go for the tack laser, which is crucial on any sniper. I like to go for the basic sniper scope, although I do know a lot of people prefer the variable zoom. And then when it comes to the actual reticle, I like cross thread a lot. I think it's really clean and really easy to stay on target, but cover shot is also a very popular one as well. I'm sticking with cross thread though. Then for the final attachment, we got the sport comb stock for a better ADS time. Now for actual snipers, again, you could go a few different routes. The AX50 and the HDR are ultimately very, very similar. I just prefer the HDR though. It's just more comfortable. I like the way it feels a bit more, but that's more so preference based. Again, we're going monolithic suppressor. We're gonna go largest barrel, which is the HDR Pro barrel. We're going tack laser. Honestly, because I do use the HDR for like super long range sniping, the variable zoom scope here is pretty extreme. Like the 12.6 times zoom is insanely good for very long range fights. So if you like to do recons and post up and just like wait in that power position for the end of the game, using an HDR, like I know Iron does this a lot in games, very useful. And then for the final attachment, we're going Stalker Scout stock. I know the Champion stock is also used a little bit, but I prefer Stalker Scout for that better ADS because it's not the fastest in the world. And then to close things out, we've got the handguns, and there's actually two different options that I would recommend here, and that is the M19s and the Psycovs. Now the M19s, you'll notice I mentioned plural there. This is meant specifically for very close range fights because we're building this around an akimbo loadout. The TTK on the Akimbo M19s is the best in the game for close range fights. So we are all built around close range here. We want the 5mm laser, obviously, for better accuracy. We're gonna go for the 32 round mags because, hey, the more the merrier here, in all honesty. We're gonna go for the lightweight trigger as well. Then for the final attachment, you can sort of mess around. I wouldn't recommend the monolithic suppressor because you don't need better range here, but you probably do want to stay off the minimap. So lightweight suppressor is not a bad option. Oil can would not recommend. Tactical I would not recommend, but lightweight honestly is not too bad. You don't have to worry about the damage range here because, like I said, you're only focused on CQB engagements. So this is honestly a super fun setup to use if you just like pushing buildings and making sure you have the fastest killing weapon available. Obviously though, you're hip firing only, so the accuracy can be kind of a pain. Luckily though, the 5mm laser does help out with that some. And then the final setup we're looking at is the Psycov. This thing is probably the best overall pistol in the game just because it's so easy to use. Again, we're going for monolithic suppressor. Here, we definitely want the 140mm automatic barrel. It's gonna be the easiest to use and make this weapon the most efficient. I like to go for the 80 round mags just because it's ridiculous, or the 80 round drums rather. The 20 round is also totally viable. You have to run an ammunition upgrade on this thing if you're using the automatic barrel, and 80 is just too fun to pass up, right? I also go for the Priz Rack grip. We're getting a better ADS speed out of that and better sprint to fire. Now, if you're using regain, like what I recommend in my loadout videos, you'd be going for fully loaded here to maximize that ammo. But if you just want the Psycov as a nice secondary, I'd probably go for the tack laser or the 5mm laser there instead. Either of those will be solid. You can hip fire with this thing even as a single pistol. It'll be pretty consistent, but tack laser is going to help out better if you're ADSing, and it'll be easier to stay on target with that. So there you have it. Those are the Modern Warfare meta weapons right now. Obviously a lot more than we had before. You know, previously I would say it was the AMAX, the MP5 for Modern Warfare, not really any shotguns, the PKM and the Bruin kind of, but there really was not much variety when the Cold War weapons were so dominant. But thanks to this last weapon tuning update, there are quite a few more options. Hopefully this helped you guys out if you are big Modern Warfare weapon fans and you prefer to use those weapons over the Cold War ones. But that is going to wrap things up for today. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you did, let me know by dropping a like on the video. It would be seriously appreciated. And if you're new to the channel, feel free to subscribe. That way you can stay up to date with everything going on in Call of Duty. Once again, and as always, thank you so much for tuning in. And until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I will catch you guys later. Peace out.